First Take, wishing you all a very happy Halloween. He is Stephen A. Smith. He's Damian Woody. He's Max Kellerman. I'm Molly Karam, and we are so glad to have you with us. A lot happening today. Obviously, NFL trade deadline was yesterday. We'll get into all of that.
Outfit.
On that note, let's put this on the record so America knows.
Orange
I tried
black,
to be festive.
I
asked the guys yesterday. They agreed to dress up as long as it wasn't some kind of corny costume. They just need more time. So can we get it on the record that next year we'll all dress up on First Take?
No.
I will do what you asked me to do.
Yes.
I won't put it on the record. I'll consider it.
It's a really big,
See what I deal with?
It's a really big reason why I said yes to that.
Okay.
Because Stevie A let a kid.
Oh, my goodness. Damian.
He sure does.
Welcome to my life. All right,
Sure
let's start with the trade.
Sure
So Golden Tate, obviously Detroit Lions wide receiver. Guess what? He's now a Philadelphia Eagle. He was traded for a third-round pick. Now, former NFL coach John Fox thinks this is just what the defending champs needed. Take a listen.
The one I think will probably be the most impact is going to be Golden Tate with the Eagles. And just because of the supporting cast, what they have, what they were missing, and, kind of the position they're in. And I just think that's what they've been missing is a big play, dynamic guy that's good with the ball in his hands. And this is no offense to Aguilar or Alshon I coached in Chicago. But I think it's just something that they've been missing in their offense. Somebody can get the ball too quick and can get those positive yards.
All right, so Golden Tate's an Eagle. Stephen A., do you feel like this was the missing piece for the Eagles?
I think it absolutely could be. I think it's that big of a deal. And the reason why I think it's that big of a deal is because I got love for Golden Tate. The brother can play. And when you consider him being in the slot and having the combination of him along with your running backs, whether it's Clement or somebody else, or Wendell Smallwood, or you got Zach Ertz to give it to. You're talking about a guy in Carson Wentz that doesn't have to look deep in order to get completions and to move the chains. And because of that, that's why this is such a big deal. You have to take into account the fact that the Redskins are in first place right now. We're going to talk about them a little bit later because we know how stout their defense is to some degree. We know the kind of play that Swearinger has put in for them. We know with them acquiring Clinton Dix, what it potentially is going to do for them. Well, how do you combat that? You don't combat that by trying to go deep and run a bunch of fly patterns. You've got to be successful in between the numbers. And Golden Tate being in that slot receiver, knowing, first of all, he ain't just a slot receiver. He could play multiple positions. But when you look at it from the receiver spot, but when you look at what he can do in the slot, I'm thinking not to this degree, Damian, not to this degree, Max, but I'm thinking along the lines of how Tom Brady utilizes Julian Edelman. And I'm saying, can Golden Tate be somebody that you could utilize that way? Of course you can, particularly with the weapons that the Philadelphia Eagles have. We all say that the Eagles are going to go where Carson Wentz takes them. With this additional weapon for Carson Wentz, he could potentially take you very far. Because if you're looking at his numbers right now, they ain't that damn bad. And we haven't even considered him having arrived yet since he's gotten back from his injuries. So I love the acquisition of Golden Tate. I think because of it, the Philadelphia Eagles are coming. Obviously, the Redskins may have something to say about that with their acquisition, but I think everybody needs to be on the lookout. To me, this is a big-time move by the Philadelphia Eagles.
This is not the missing piece for the Eagles. The problem with the Eagles right now is on the offensive line. Their right tackle's not on the field. Their left tackle's physically compromised. And it's been this way all year at left tackle. So, the offensive line is the issue. This is not the missing piece. Now, the question as to whether this puts them over the top. In fact, Washington counteracted the move. You get a receiver, they get a guy to try to stop the receiver. Now, as to the quality of Golden Tate, first of all, it impresses me that the marketplace has really shifted. Running backs until very recently were so devalued, it was always considered a mistake to draft them high up in the first round. That's changed a little bit recently, but that's only because these running backs also catch passes. But with the passing game ascending in, the last generation of players, Randy Moss once upon a time went for a fourth-round pick. Amari Cooper, forget it, he went for a first. Ridiculous. Golden Tate went for a third-round pick. That's a haul. That traditionally, by historical standards, is a haul. Now, I just mentioned how these running backs are going up high because they can run the ball, but they can also catch the ball. This is an example in Golden Tate of a guy who kind of does the same thing but reverse. They talk about the way he can run with the ball.
Yeah.
On the Patriots-Bills broadcast this last week, the point was made, and I forgot by whom, that the Patriots don't just have running backs and receivers. They have football players who can catch and run. Ty Montgomery, who's in the news now, and we're going to get to him later, is a guy like that. He went from receiver to running back. Golden Tate is sort of like that. He's a guy
second in the league in yak yards after the catch since he entered in 2010.
He's a football player who can catch and run. So I'm not arguing that he's not a valuable player. And I understand the price has gone up, so a third-round pick doesn't blow you away anymore for a guy like Golden Tate. And he makes them better. But this is not the missing piece for the team. The problem's on the offensive line.
Well, I think here's where you're wrong. It's the missing piece for what the Philadelphia Eagles are currently constructed. You're right about the offensive line. The offensive line hasn't played as well as they played in seasons past. Their primary issue has been the running game. The running game, last year, they were one of the best running teams in the National Football League. They haven't been that way. But here's the difference right here. In the National Football League, the game is trending a little bit more towards a college game where you see these teams throwing it out to these players, and these players are making things happen, which, Molly, you referenced the yak. Well, there's no really
5-yard pass, big game.
There you go. And Golden Tate is basically a running back playing wide receiver. Right. Every time he gets the ball, it's almost impossible for the first guy to make the tackle, and that's why he gets so many yards after the catch. So when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, it's perfect for what they're going to be moving forward. They're not going to be the dominant running team that they were last year. They're more so now saying, you know what? Scrap that. We're not going to be running the ball traditionally. We're going to get the ball out to our playmakers' hands. You know, the Nelson Aguilars, the Golden Tate, those guys, and let those guys make up or supplement the running attack that they don't have this year.
It's something similar to what I mentioned to Max the other day about Brian Westbrook back in the day when he had Donovan McNabb. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't have much of a running game. He was their running back, but he was their elite pass catcher out of the backfield. So he made just as much, if not more, noise catching the ball out of the backfield than he did actually running the football. This is prior to T.O. arriving. This is in the days of Todd Pinkston, Freddie Mitchell, and those boys. This is one of those situations. Let's look at the weapons that the Philadelphia Eagles have. Nelson Aguilar upgraded last year. Alshon Jeffries can ball. Zach Ertz can ball at your tight end spot. You're compromised to some degree by the offensive line because they're not as formidable as they were in years past, even though they're not scrubs. I still want to see Peters. I still want to see Lane Johnson and those boys step their game up a little bit. I think that particularly in the case of Peters, he's taken a step back this year. He hasn't looked as effective this year as he does in years past.
It's the kind of injury that's going to bother him all year.
That's why I'm not crucifying him. I understand why, but it's not the same as it was last year. So if you're doing that, what you have done essentially as a football team is conceded. I can't run the football nearly as effectively because my offensive line is not as stout. But for some reason, they can still pass protect. And we know this cat Carson Wentz, who's completed 70% of his passes, give him an additional weapon. That's what you did.
All right. So Stephen A. and Damian feel like good move there. Essentially the missing piece. You're still focused on the O-line. Yeah, and obviously two of them getting hurt their last game. Let's stay with the wideouts guy. Demaryius Thomas also on the move. He is headed south, traded to the Broncos for Thomas in a 2019 7th-round pick to Houston for a 2019 4th and 7th-round picks. Excuse me. Here's John Elway on that deal.
We're not hell-bent on trading Demaryius. If the value was there, that we felt the value was there. We felt that it could help us that way as far as the draft next year, and that we thought that with the young guys behind him that we could make up for the space that he would leave. And so. We got the value that we thought was fair, and that was the most important thing. So, I think that it's never easy when you trade a guy that's been a household name here for a long time and done a lot of great things, not only on the football field, but also in the community, and, is a good man.
All right, let's keep in mind, Houston obviously just lost Will Fuller on Thursday Night Football to an ACL tear, so this obviously makes a lot of sense. How much better does this make the Texans? Because, Max, they've just won 5 straight.
Yeah, no, you just hit it on the head. They're running in place. Does Demaryius Thomas a little upgrade over Fuller? Oh, okay, you could argue that. And so but they're basically replacing something they needed. Mm-hmm. What I'm impressed with is John Elway. John Elway takes a lot of criticism because he hasn't been able to identify the quarterback in the draft that he needs. And as a former all-time great, you would think, okay, go get that guy. How hard is this? But John Elway is an excellent GM. He has such a sober view of the team. And in a sport where you got to be, look at Bill Belichick, the most sober, ruthless, calculating GM, right? No sentimental attachment to anything. John Elway said, we're not hell-bent on trading that, but if we get value, we'd like to start Sutton, like get him some more snaps. We think we have young receivers. And if we get a 4th-round pick that helps us out, and they didn't win a lot of games last year, and it doesn't look like they're going to win a ton of games this year, so let's get some value going forward. It reminds, like, you think about the days of them winning double digits every year and trying to make a Super Bowl run, and even think about the way he did that. Oh, I can get Peyton Manning at a discount because he's devalued, because he's coming off injury. Let me grab him. He even used Osweiler with Peyton Manning to win that Super Bowl, really, if you think about the journey to the Super Bowl. He's just a very sober GM who deserves credit for making this kind of move. He just got value for a guy who, what good does he do the Broncos at this moment?
You know what? Please don't irritate me this morning, this early. Don't do that to me. Listen, we know that John Elway is a damn good executive, but let's not sit up there and, I mean, what are you going to do next? Throw roses at him? I mean, come on now. You're a Hall of Fame quarterback. You're a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Anybody else, we're looking at them and we're saying, what is your signature? In other words, whatever your level of expertise are, is that where we expect you to excel? The answer is yes, Max. And the fact of the matter is that when you got questions at the quarterback position and you haven't been able to find a quarterback, and this Brock Osweiler, it's Paxton Lynch, I forgot one name, and then now you got Case Keenum. At some point in time, we're going to look at the Denver Broncos and we're going to say, John Elway, you are every bit as good as Max says you are. We give you credit. But can you get us a quarterback? That's all I'm saying.
In the draft.
That's it. I don't give a damn how he does it. I don't give a damn.
Well, he got him a quarterback.
I don't give a damn if he has to find a quarterback off the street. I don't care. All I'm saying to you is that, look, excuse me, you got Peyton Manning. I'm saying it wasn't hard. Peyton Manning, Indianapolis.
A lot of other teams didn't get Peyton.
I don't think that qualifies as identifying a quarterback.
Right. He needs to identify a quarterback in the draft.
And stop being naive. You know good and damn well Peyton Manning ended up in Denver because he wanted to end up in Denver. If he had wanted to end up somewhere else, he'd have ended up somewhere else. So it's not that John Elway got him. It's that Peyton Manning wanted to go there.
John Elway built a defense that Peyton Manning looked at and said, I can win there.
He did build that defense.
Yes, and I know that, which is why I'm saying we respect him as an executive. But let's not act like, oh, my God, he found Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning said, I want you. That's why he ended up in Denver. Now let's get down to the point about the Texans. There's something to be said for maintaining where you are. You lose 3 games to start off the season. You go with 5. You win 5 straight. You lose Fuller. You go out and you get a complimentary piece that at least measures up to what Fuller is capable of giving you. So I'm pleased for that with the Texans. The fact that they didn't sit up there and just rest on their laurels and say, Deshaun Watson, take us there. Figure it out. No. What they said is we're not going to compromise him in any way. We know what we've got going here. We see Lamar Miller running the ball effectively. We see DeAndre Hopkins being the stud that he is. Our defense led by Watt, who might win Defensive Player of the Year, by the way that he's been balling. What are Jadeveon Clowney and others? We see what they're doing potentially defensively. Let's make sure we don't disrupt what we've got going on here. That's what the Houston Texans did. That's what they deserve credit for, because everybody wouldn't have gone out and got a Demaryius Thomas in the Texans situation. I'm happy they did.
Well, listen, when you look at Demaryius Thomas coming in, Will Fuller and Demaryius Thomas are 2 totally different wide receivers. So, you know, Will Fuller is a guy who stretches the field. You know, he's the guy that what they call blow the top off the defense. That's not Demaryius Thomas's game. He's more of a bigger body, somebody that can catch the 50-50 type balls. And then you get in the red zone, you would think that he can outmuscle guys, you know, in the red zone. So I give Houston Texans credit for adding a piece, knowing that they had a piece going down. But if you really look at the Houston Texans, where they really improved is really the offensive line. The offensive line had been atrocious when you started the season, but they've gotten better the past couple weeks, and that has shown up as to why the Houston Texans have won 5 straight games.
Watson's not getting killed anymore.
He's not. He's still getting hit, but he's not just getting murdered out there.
They're getting the ball out of his hands faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you combine that with the defense and J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney and all those boys playing the way that they're playing. Houston Texans are going to be a team to reckon with. I like the trade because, again, you're just adding a piece that a piece went down, but I don't think it's a piece that's just going to, all of a sudden it's going to take you over the top if you're the Houston Texans.
Yeah, and this is the typical trade that happens by the deadline. Team that's not going anywhere is going to get rid of an older, more expensive player. They have some good young players. The team that thinks they're in it is going to pick up a player. It's not a world-changing move, but it's going to solidify something. I just want to get back to Elway for a second, because Stephen A., you're underestimating him. I'm not saying he's Bill Belichick as a GM. But last 8 seasons, he's been to 5 playoffs, 2 Super Bowls, with a Super Bowl win. And unlike a lot of GMs, by the way, the Giants were franchises that chase their tails when it's not there for them. They try to wish it into existence. He looks at it and goes, nope, time to rebuild. I'll have Case Keenum as a placeholder. I got to find a quarterback. In the meantime, I'm going to rebuild. It's the right thing to do.
I think you're hyping up John Elway a little bit. Again, you've basically gone through 4 quarterbacks. You haven't been able to identify one. You got Vance Joseph, who's basically like a dead man walking as the head coach. They wanted to fire him after year 1. If he has another down year, he's probably not going to be there this year. So as much as we talk about much as we talk about the Denver Broncos and the 2 Super Bowls and all those type of things, the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, has just lapped the Denver Broncos in the AFC West. They are the dominant team in the AFC West.
No question.
Right now.
Let's keep it moving, guys, because more trades happen. The rich keep getting richer. Keep in mind, the LA Rams already were first in pass rush, and now this. The Jags traded Dante Fowler Jr. to the Rams for a 2019 third-round pick and a 2020 fifth-round pick. LA will now be able to rush the passer with Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh, and Fowler. Max Kellerman, are the Rams the favorites?
They were the favorites before this, and they should be slightly heavier favorites now. Obviously, getting Fowler, they think that their biggest issue is rushing the passer. But actually, recently, I thought they've had a problem stopping the run. And that's not Fowler's specialty, obviously. I'll say this about Fowler. For a guy picked 3rd overall, he looked like a bust for a minute. Unfortunate injury to start his career, so athletically not the same at first. He's not starting, I get that. I think this guy is a stud. I think he's excellent. I think there's upside. I think that's a tremendous pickup. And I don't want to compare him to Khalil Mack, but in the sense where you already have a defense that's good. Sometimes you can add an element, and in this case, not as well-rounded, obviously, as Khalil Mack, but a guy who can get to the quarterback can put it over the top. I love this move for the Rams. I think Fowler's a really, really good player who's going to get better. And yes, they are heavier favorites now than before this trade.
Here's what I like about the move. First of all, the Rams got 4 number 1s on their defensive line. You got 2, studs in the interior, Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh. So we always talk about in pro football, a quarterback wants to step up in the pocket. Well, where is he going to be able to step up? Because now you got guys collapsing in the middle of the pocket. Now you add a guy, Dante Fowler, who can edge rush and get in the back door and add more pressure. But here's what I see in this move. Remember back in with the Colts days where you had Peyton Manning and then you had Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis. They would just score so many points, and then teams were playing catch-up the whole time and then pass rush. That's kind of what I see right now with the Los Angeles Rams. They got a young quarterback, and they're just going for it right now. They're just adding all these pieces because we all know once it's time to pay Jerry Goff, all this is going to be torn down. But for right now, they're taking the approach of you can't score with us, and our pass rush is going to finish off games.
I feel something different from all of this. When I saw that they acquired him, looking at Donald and Ndamukong Suh and knowing their ability to get to the passer right now, why are you buffering this? Why the urgency? Made me just ask that question. Could it be that there might be some concerns about Aqib Talib? Could it be that there might be some concerns about what you've seen from Peters the last couple of weeks? Could it be that you're looking at your secondary and you're not as buffed about it as you thought you were? Could that possibly? I'm not saying that
it's a legit question.
I'm saying there's a legit questions. And so as a result of that, this is the other thing that I'll take into consideration. And remember I said this. Remember right now, when you watch the Rams, if this is old school days, it's no big deal. This is a beautiful thing. Dante Fowler, you just 24 years of age. You ain't starting. You hungry. Played 7 games this year. You didn't start a single game. You got 2 sacks on the year, but there's a lot of upside. You're the former number 3 overall pick. There were expectations for you. You haven't lived up to it. Okay, we'll find out about you. We'll see. But remember this, guys. Because of the rules and the way things are implemented today and the way the quarterback is protected, you know these guys going to go after an opposing quarterback like Rough Riders. How many roughing the passer penalties do you anticipate are coming down the road for the Los Angeles Rams? I sense many. And I promise you, when you during the regular season, what I'm saying seems like a very, very small thing. But if you're going against Aaron Rodgers, and Cam Newton, and Drew Brees, Russell Wilson potentially, Matt Ryan potentially, stuff like that, excuse me, that stuff is going to be chickens coming home.
That's a coaching issue. Bill Belichick's team doesn't get roughing the passer.
But you know what?
Because they don't prioritize getting at the passer.
But you know what?
They bend but don't break. They bend but don't break.
Here's what I look at also.
LA trying to break you.
Here's what I look at also.
Right.
We saw the game last week. I mean, Aaron Rodgers going toe for toe. I mean, it's basically Aaron Rodgers against the whole Los Angeles Rams team. That's right. And he almost beat them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying,
Tom Montgomery, thank you very much.
I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this whole thing like, man, from the Rams' perspective, we might need another piece to get after people because
that's right.
Because Aaron Rodgers was
the backdoor point. I think was the best one, Damian. That they have those studs in the middle. Although the Packers O-line, which when healthy is very, very good.
Very good.
They held their own there. But now you got a guy coming in the back door. That's a problem. And here's the thing about Fowler. Look, they paid a steep price after I'm criticizing a third-round pick for a wide. Oh, my God, Amari Cooper gets a first. Still a third and a fifth for a guy who's really like a specialist at this moment in his career.
Who?
Fowler is like a specialist rushing the passer kind of guy.
When you say the word specialist, can you at least be in the starting lineup? Hey, when you say specialist,
no, that's what I mean.
It's just a preference. It's just a preference.
No, that's what I mean, Stephen A. If you're not in the starting lineup, you're seen as a specialist, not as an every down guy. But my point is this about Fowler. If it seems like a steep price to pay, yes or no, thumb up or down, baller or not?
Who?
Dante Fowler. I say baller.
I'd go baller.
Baller.
I can't give him baller right now.
I give him baller.
All right, we got to go.
He's not starting.
He's going to be starting now.
He's not starting.
Max, you mentioned a couple times he went third overall, 2015.
I like Dante.
Right after him?
I like Dante, but I forgot about him.
It's kind of like how we throw out, elite to everybody. Like we give out elite. Like
no. What I'm saying is this, Damian. What I'm saying is this: a third and a fifth seems like a steep price to pay. But in fact, at this moment, he's an undervalued commodity.
Right.
But is he a baller?
Yeah,
baller.
Okay. As I was trying to say earlier before I was rudely interrupted, Fowler went third overall in the 2015 draft. You know who went fourth? Amari Cooper. It's okay. You feel sorry.
Me?
When we come back, both of you, him too. The Rockets did something they haven't done since 2010, and it isn't a good thing. I will explain after the break. Stephen A., cover your ears. That bad man didn't get any help at the trade deadline. Mr. Smith has a message for him. We'll tell you what that is at the top of the hour.